Well, as you can see, I'm back up at PPG. I love coming up here. This place is just so unreal. If you're into paintwork and doing things in a really nice environment, this is the place. So we're at Eastern Creek up in Sydney. I've got John and Trevor. Duke. Everyone knows me, knows I can never remember names. So these guys are going to help me today about selecting a colour for your build, but also the implications of making that decision, because there's a whole lot of things involved in that. And first of all, what colour, but then secondly, the variant of that colour, and then thirdly, what your budget is and whether you're picking a colour you can afford, because there's a whole lot of, variations in what you can do. And I know for myself, if I'm trying to help someone with a colour, and I've spoken to John about this a lot, is that you really got to think about the colours you don't want. I don't know if you ever thought about it that way, Trev, but if you think, people often say, I don't know what I want, and you're at Southern Apps and there's 20 different colours on the wall on the PPG stand, and people just stand there mesmerised. But if you say, do you want white? No, I don't. Do you want black? No, I don't. Do you want red? Then you start to narrow it down, where you're getting to a point where you've got 3 to pick from. You're left with a red, a green, and a pink.
Yeah.
So I've always done it that way. So from your guys' experience, like small car versus big car, have you found different things work?
Yeah, absolutely. The colour's a very personal choice. You've got to pick the right colour. If you pick the wrong colour, it can make the car look smaller or bigger, or if it's too dark, it hides a lot of the styling lines, a lot of the hard work that you've put in. So you need to pick a colour. Again, is it driver? Is it what you want when you're a 17-year-old that you used to see running around the road, or you're trying to build something to win? In that case, you've got a different set of things to think about.
And even if you're going to use it, and I'm sure you'd be into this, Trevor, people have got to match the colour. And I've seen it where someone's got out the back and put the different colours in and made enough to paint the car, and then when they've had an accident, they come to guys like you to try and match that colour.
Yeah, well, that's another challenge in itself too, especially if it's a custom formulation.
Yeah, well, I've seen it with pearls and stuff, and they have an insurance job and end up painting either the whole side or the whole car.
Yes. Because
they just physically cannot match the colour.
Yeah, we see that a lot.
Now, there's so much to talk about here for such a very small subject, and I sort of want to start by looking at things. So you think, do I want a blue, do I want a red? It's interesting that you say you want a blue. I just grabbed these from out the back, and they normally have these on when they're at trade stands and stuff. That's just a few different blues. Now that's one card of blues of what?
There's probably about 14 different
cards in those, and these, just explain to us, Trev, because these aren't actually colours of a car, these are...
they're chromatic order, so we've got 2 different ones. So they are chromatic order, which goes through all your blues, your greens, your reds, you start looking at those. They are an actual paint code.
Right.
So you can look at motor manufacturer's box, which will have all the motor manufacturers, but it's just not...
So you can go to the Ford box and say, right, I want a Ford blue, and it come out in 79, or it come out in 95, or you can 2015.
Yeah, it's a motor manufacturer one, or chromatic. So chromatic is probably easier for a colour selection.
Yep.
You can then go to those selections. You can start to minimise down. Okay, what shade do I want? What is it? Green tone, blue tone, yellow tone. So there's lots of different tones from just the blue colour.
In the one colour. Now you're telling me you've been working with a guy, and I got you to grab some of the spray outs that you've been doing. So this one's fairly close to my heart because it's a Ford blue. But this is a customer that Trev's been working. So just explain to us the process, where you started, and the process that you've worked through with this particular guy.
With this guy, so pretty much the process started from the chromatic box. So he's come in asking for a blue, he likes blue. Different shape of car, so we tried to find out what shape the car was, what's going to suit that car.
Yep.
We've gone to the chromatic box. We've gone through many sleeves of these, which I've just mentioned.
What did you end up picking out of all of those blues?
So where we've ended up, so we've gone through a lot of these particular colours, so you can see the same thing, a lot of different tones.
Yep.
A lot different to ones you just had there.
And this one is the lucky winner after all of that.
Well, that's actually the start of an old Ford colour.
So this is electric blue.
Original Ford colour.
So that's what he sort of felt he wanted?
That's what he wanted. He started out at. By the time he's looked at these colour chips, He's then come up with a different style of the blue, which is up on there, we've got marked up for us.
So similar tone.
Similar tone, but it's brighter, cleaner, more of a late modern or modern type colour.
Yeah, so we've done this quite a lot, and I'll put some stills up. So John and I worked together way back with Exclusive Customs when they were in Sydney with Coolmint Coupe.
Yeah.
So it was Coolmint green, and we were fortunate enough that we had the colour chip of the original acrylic paint on a Dulux card, and we colour matched that, or you colour matched that with a computer, which brought us up with a colour that was in Europe somewhere, that was a factory colour, that was considered a match by the computer.
Yes.
So we did a spray out on that. Can you just explain to us, John, what's different about the old colour versus the new colour?
Yeah, so a lot of the older colours, especially from the 60s, 70s into the 80s, there was a lot of acrylic technology used. With the newer technologies, newer base coats, they're a lot cleaner and brighter, and there's a much larger tinter selection. So we might have 85 to 90 tinters. When you go back to acrylic, you're limited with the range and the actual pigment choice. So now, even though the colour looks the same, we can get cleaner, brighter colours, but they're a lot more, no matter which angle you look at them, they're a lot more appealing.
I'm just going to say, I've just picked these up because people talk about colours that are in the game about being clean, and it's normally about you can put that there or you can put the light on it, it's a nice colour, but when you tip it on the flat and look at it, it just loses something, it almost goes dark.
Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't reflect the light and it's just not a nice colour. Where the new ones, when you tip that on its side and change it, it actually goes with the light and you get a whole different variation of colour.
Yeah.
So that's just more about the fact that we're no longer acrylic.
Yep, and
even
the silver pigments were very fine and limited, so that a lot of those in combination with white would wash out those angles. So now we've got brighter metallics, leave the white out of the colour, you all of a sudden get this nice clean bright colour.
So if you come to the Sunmats, or if you go to any of the other shows that these guys go to, and I know I've been to the Melbourne Showdown, to the Hot Rod Show here in Sydney, they have a lot of this stuff on the stand. Besides all those nice vibrant colours, the options are there. I know a few years back you had all the spray outs for the Monaros and the GTs and all in these style late model colours.
Yep.
So that's the first thing. You can get your old school colour in a nice new colour. Once you sort of get to a point where you've got an idea where you're going with colour, you've then got the options how you're going to paint that. And you can paint it in a direct gloss, you can paint it in a clear over base. I'm going to throw over to John with the whiteboard just to explain the complex side of the types of paint and how they fit from a costing point of view, because obviously that becomes part of what we're all doing.
That's right. Yeah. So with paint, you've got groups. They're grouped in different based on the colour and the pigment that's being used. So if I look at direct gloss, so you've got DG, and I've got a group 1. And a group 1 typically is your white. A colour that, personally as a painter, I hate painting because you can put all that effort into it and
it's still white.
It's still white.
It's still white.
It's all white, but it's white. So white is our group 1. So this will probably be your cheapest,
most cost-effective
thing to buy. The challenge with that is that you've got the pigment exposed. So if you came across to a base coat system, we would do that. It would still be a group 1, but it would need clear coat.
So you spray a white base coat rather than a clear over base versus direct gloss. Direct gloss, you spray it, comes out shiny, you're done.
Yeah, that's right.
Now if you want to cut and polish it, you can do that. And that's when you see, especially back in when I used to watch Coddington shows, they'd be doing a red car and everybody's red because you're polishing the red paint.
The challenge is when you cut pigment, you reduce the film build,
right,
and then you reduce its durability, and you're always, whether you're scratching it, washing it, polishing it, you're polishing the pigment. So by applying the clear, we protect that pigment and we give it a much longer lifespan.
You did mention earlier, because I obviously did a bit of a prelim on it, I always wondered why when we did the Mustang 15 years ago, we actually did direct gloss. chopped it with 800 and then put clear coat on it. And I was always a bit curious, and I used to always say to people, I have more depth. But John was explaining to me today, it's more about the UV protection, that you're actually protecting the pigment.
Yeah.
So, I just keep continuing to learn about it. So, yes, you can shoot the milk truck white, but really the better way to go, if you're building your car, you're going to keep it for a long time, clear over base is probably a better option.
Absolutely. Yeah. You get much better life and you can keep polishing it.
So in that direct gloss, if we just go back to that, so there's what, 3 levels there, I think?
So we've got a group 2, and this grouping determines the pricing.
Right.
How much you're going to pay for the product. Then you've got a group 3, which is the highest one. So group 2 is typically a blue and probably a lighter blue, and then once you get into red, and that's just simply because the red pigments cost us a lot.
I'm just going to say the cost of the actual, and like when you talk blue and green sort of in the same thing because it's still just a mixture of colours.
So the more white something has, the higher up the group it is, the less white it'll have, or more pigment itself.
So if we go here, if we say this is 100, whatever's, percent, dollars, whatever, this one here is going to go up potentially another 20 or 30.
Depending on what, it could double and then triple into group 3.
Okay, so just to give you an idea, the more complex your colour, and if you love red like me, it's going to cost you more for your base coat, for your direct gloss. When you go into base coat, then we get a bit more technical because we can do still what I class as a flat or a base colour, so just red, white, blue.
Yeah.
But then of course we then go into groups there because we've got all these specialist colours.
So we've got group 2, we've got group 3, but then we also have an FX group or SP, which is special colours. So these are our pearls, our 3-layer pearls, our red base coat.
This sort of thing.
This is probably its own category.
This is its own category.
Yeah, that's right.
So I mean that's the thing. Everything's possible now because there's so much available. But you just got to remember, when you want to go, if you want to go full bling, it's going to cost you some money.
That's right. And once you're getting into these, you're getting into a 3-layer. So effectively, you're putting on a colour and a second colour. So this is base coat, clear coat. This is base coat, clear coat.
Right.
So this becomes this will be your most expensive exercise. Once you start wanting to put an overlay over a ground coat, that's when you start to see that yes, the price will definitely be.
And it's not only product; it's more time.
A lot more time.
And time's money, as we all know. So this is where that colour selection is going to come bearing down on you if you're not doing it at home. The shop's got more time.
Yeah, so
involved in the process.
This can be 2 coats, 2 to 3 coats within 1 hour application. Right? This, when you get to here, I've seen people spend 10, 12, 13 hours in a spray booth.
Yes, and like the caddy you did would be a good example.
Well, that was 2 days, right?
Yeah, so King Cab, when that was done, and it's
What
colours and lines and
Wildcat, when
Wildcat
was out here, he spent 2 days in that booth, and I spent 2 hours watching him. It was great.
Yeah. So we go here, and then this is more like base, and then this is more your iridescence and your flakes and stuff.
Yeah, this starts to getting into the metallic. So this is pretty much solid colours.
Yep.
But then again, this will start to group, into red pearls, red, blue metallics, and metallics, high concentration of pearl, and then 3-layer.
So what you need to do is track down your PPG distributor if you're buying just product, or talk to your painter if you've got a paint shop doing it that's a PPG workshop, to work out what sort of pricing they're going to have based on what category you're going to be in, so that you don't get the big shock at the end where you spend all this time picking a colour and then realise that you've picked the dearest one. And a good example of that, I guess, is BOSSXC, because we were doing it here. We were looking at the best result possible, and with all the stuff you put in that, it's probably getting down here somewhere.
Yeah, it's definitely in between here, right?
Yep.
We've got it placed in there.
Now the other thing to think about when you're picking your colours, and I know you spoke earlier, John, about yellows, for instance.
Yeah.
The ability to get it to colour.
Yeah, yellow's a big one, because yellows, I've seen a lot of yellows where the job's painted separately, and yellow is definitely a lot more susceptible to variation, because if you don't put the exact amount of coats on, the yellow that you put on can look green because the primer's coming through.
Right.
So you've got to start thinking about what ground coat should I put under this to make sure I don't have that
So
issue.
Trev managed to grab some of these for me as well, because once again, I know we've had the discussion before, some of the factory 3 layers, the first layer is actually more a primer than a paint,
Yeah.
whereby you've got all these different primer colours, and you can mix. The one we're using on the Camaro is tintable.
Tintable primer, yep.
Yeah, so at the moment it's probably about this colour, but if we're actually going to use quite a light colour, but if you're using a darker colour, I know when I did the undercarriage on BOSSXC, so what's that,
G7.
G7, that's what I used under the grey, so then I've got less coats to put on, so I use this wet on wet with the colour. So once again, if you're doing, and where I was heading with that is if you're using a yellow, it might be in the cheaper ranges, but you might need twice as much of maybe using the red.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, so you've got to look at that balance.
3 times.
3 times as much
Yeah.
paint. So even though the paint per litre is cheaper, you're going to spend more money because you've got to buy more of it.
That's right.
And you may need to put a specialist colour under it to get it to even colour.
Just to help with the hide, yeah.
Yeah, just to get it to balance and work through. So I'm not able to help you guys out there to pick your colour because I don't know where you're heading, but just remember, if you go to your PPG distributor, which are on the website, on the PPG website, there are no end of reds, blues, greens, you name it, colours to pick from. Now, if you're doing, when you go to your panel shop and you say, I want to pick a colour and work out, remember that if you go down the track that Trev's gone down with someone, and you'll start off with your colour, and you have that time with him, to do these spray outs, you're talking about, setting it up, mixing the colour, spraying it, might have some clear on the go, might not, got to mix some clear, spray it, to be able to check the colour. You're going to have to pay the guy.
Time and money.
Time's money.
These 4 spray outs can represent 2 hours of time.
Yeah, so, depending on the hourly rate at the go,
Yeah.
I always say to people, if you want to get your painter offside right from the get-go, when he asks you to pay for the spray, actually get chips with him, I can tell you now, you're not going to get the paint job you want, because this is a major part of the game, and it costs time, which is money. So, and he's got to do the product, and he's got to mix it up and go through the process, and then you're still probably not happy. Which leads us to another thing. Now, the boys have been showing me today, and I'm going to try and do it on the screen here, so I'll turn the camera off in a minute and we'll get it fired up. PPG internationally have come up with a new program.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, John.
It's called Visualize. It's a 3D software rendering program. So it'll actually show us a visualized spray out card on the screen without having to do the spray out. So we can save a lot of time and
so this is driven by colour matching OEM colours in crash shops, is it?
Yeah, it's a combination. It's the same colour at an OEM level. So 1G3 is a very popular grey on Toyotas. There's about 45 formulas for it.
So those formulas have been generated by shops and then they've recorded them?
They've been generated, because it's an old colour,
Yep.
and the Toyotas are painted around the world, you start to get this bit of variation from factory to factory. So instead of doing 100 spray outs, we can use
To
the
work
software.
out which one you've got, basically.
It will tell us that based on the car that's in front of you, this is the closest formula to it, but here's the next 6 or 7 we think may also
So
suit.
this is another step on from the computer colour match.
Yeah, it works in conjunction with a spectrophotometer.
Yep.
And the new spectros now are more capable. They take 6 angles of reflectance, but they also have 6 camera angles that actually photograph the flake.
And the opportunity for you guys is the fact that if you go to your PPG shop that's taken on board this new technology, you can then look at a colour and say, well, I really like this style of colour off the latest Mustang, or I like that, where you can actually look at the different variants before it goes to spray out.
Yeah, absolutely. You can compare the colour you think you like versus the one that we've either just identified,
Yep.
and compare the 2 side by side. and you'll see which one's cleaner, which one looks better. You can use different lighting, you can change the shape of the panel.
All right, let's do it on the screen, and I'll organise this camera.
All right, a bit unusual to see a spray paint holding a computer, but I've got the spray out card in front of me, and this little grey line in the middle represents a door gap. So if I just remove that, hopefully you can start to see we've got two different colours there side by side. So we can start to look at these colours, compare the one you might like versus what's being suggested, or a spray that we might have done that we can then load up and compare. We can change that shape, we can move that around, we can simulate outdoors, so we can take it outside and you can have a look how it looks in the sunshine. And that starts to give you a little bit more of an understanding, or a bit more of a, what your car might look like in the different positions. We've got a light booth option, so again, under different lighting, which one do you think will look better in simulated lighting or indoor lighting? And again, this just helps us to reduce a lot of time and a lot of effort in producing spray out cards. So we can reduce half a day to a day just by utilising this if we want to do a custom car, rather than the spray out cards that you see that Trevor's had to produce here in front of us. So new technology, we've got about 150 of these out in the marketplace at the moment and growing. A lot of body shops are starting to use it to help them with their colour and their colour challenges. So we're now starting to use it a little bit in the custom side, and we're finding some benefits in that area as well.
So when you say customers, so that's your PPG shops?
That's our PPG body shops.
Body shops,
and
of course a lot of custom shops are PPG as well.
Absolutely.
So it's a subscription thing, so go in and have a chat. So just going to help you in that process. Once you get that decision down to a direction in colour, this can help to do it. I know even my Ute, there's about 5 variants I think for that colour.
Yeah, there is.
In the system. So if you go in to order it, it's not like, I'll have that, which variant do you want?
Yeah, so this helps us now to sit down with people before we even do a spray out and just give them a little bit more of a visual understanding of where they're heading. So good technology to have.
Very good. If you're looking to do something about the dust in your workshop, think about going to something like this Merca system. Now I've been using it for a long time now. It's distributed by PPG in Australia. Great product. It's not the cheapest on the market, but it's a great product, and it will help you to not only keep your workshop clean, you'll get really good results as well. Now John, we're talking about colours and emotion and all the things that affect them, what we should use and we shouldn't use, and this is a classic example. You want to run through us some of the process of that car and your involvement in it and where it all went?
Yeah, absolutely. Colour is very emotive, and I think the most important thing about colour is pick the one that you absolutely love. That's the most important thing. But I remember, having this conversation when we took this car to SEMA and being there and watching people react to the car. It was amazing because they had so many people, custom builders, people that just came to the show to have a look, asking me about different parts of this car and the colour. And people asking me about the flake. What flake did you use? How can I get this lighter purple in the middle? What's this darker blue at the bottom? I had people asking about the green pinstripe colour. So one car, the way that Jim Winfield's painted this just created so much emotion in people. So can you imagine this colour, in red? Would it have had the same impact, or in silver? So this is what Mario wanted. It was all out there. It suited the colour. It was the perfect colour that finally was created after 13 or 14 hours in the spray booth. But yeah, it was amazing just to see people's reaction to the different colours of the car and the different flakes.
So the paint on that, John, is actually, there's a few things in it, but it's a fade out, so it's actually a series of colours. It's not just a colour.
Yeah, it's probably a mixture of about 12 different tinters. There's one main colour, and then there's probably, I think there was maybe 10 different overlays that we put on there. Tinters that were watered down with binder, flake that was used, 2 different types of flake in the clear. But yeah, the actual colour itself is very, creates that emotion. People look at it in a show and want to go and have a look at the car.
Yeah.
So think about what the car's for. Is it your own personal choice? Is it going to be shown? Do you want to win a show? So
it's like you know, you want it to stand out. People used to say to me, you know, like all your graphics back in the old days, you know, you're crazy, you know, imagine driving that. So well, I don't want to drive it, I want to show it.
That's right.
And I think that's what it's about. It's not about, not every car's a drive car, and not every car's a show car. So it's about having a car and a colour that suits your needs. And whether that's a car that you can go to Cars and Coffee and it fits in and everyone goes, that's a really nice car, or whether it's a car that when it drives in, people go, holy hell, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And then that, if that's the effect you want. So it's a bit like that, the 2000s, you know, all that crazy spec stuff that was done.
Yeah.
It was all about attention.
And look, you know, I was talking about white earlier. There's something wrong with people that paint their cars white, but white is the most popular sold car, you know, coloured car in Australia.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't go past the white XY with the gold stripe. I mean, it's just everything suits whatever you're going to do.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks for that, John. So it's really good to get up to PPG and get that really professional advice from people like John and Trevor. They bring so much more to the program rather than me just waffling on about what I think you should do. So what I'm going to do now is just walk you through some of the things I've been doing behind the scenes, because besides doing the program, I've obviously got to get the rest of the car ready. So I'm just going to show you some of that. So continue to watch and enjoy. Just thought I'd give you a quick look in here. So I watched back the last episode and I thought, wow, looks like I never cut through. The reality is when you're doing this sort of work, you're going to find things. So you're going to do some little cut throughs. So obviously here, you know, I'm chasing out lows and highs and things, and on the body line to get my line the way I wanted it, I'm all the way back to steel. And you'll see here on the top of this guard where it actually had some probably, you know, thumb marks and stuffs in it. So don't be frightened if you cut through. You just got to remember that when you go through to steel, you need to be able to get some epoxy back over it as quick as you can. And what I'm going to do now, I've got these all cleaned up, ready to go. I'm about to put my suit on. I'll get my epoxy on and then 3 coats of the primer prime. So that's the plan, and yeah, that's about it really. So you've probably seen I haven't been using this machine that much because I'm probably sticking to my old ways, but I'm just doing this firewall now. It's had a flat sheet put in it, but it's not perfectly flat. It's got a few curves and things in it, but I'm genuinely impressed using this with some 120 on it. So I've just put the trace on it and I'll just run over it and show you, because I'm quite surprised how nice it's coming up, and it does feel pretty good. But like I say, it's not going to be mirror finish. It's more about just having a nice even shape about it. So I was looking at this morning thinking I had the best part of, you know, half a day or more to get it all blocked out, and this thing's just knocking all that peel off of the poly, and I'll trace it again and probably do the next one by hand with some 180, but this has probably saved me a couple of hours, I reckon. Just thought I'd give you a bit more of a rundown on this square block. So after what you see me do on the firewall, I went, you know what, I'm going to give it a run on the bonnet because I was pretty impressed with it. So I fully traced this, and I've now gone over and done all my flats with 120. So this is poly filler. So I'm knocking the top off it now. I'm going to retrace it and I'll go over and do the rest by hand. But this has saved a lot of time today by taking all that peel off and getting down to the base, so I can now start rubbing with some 180. Righto, so I've got another load ready to go in the booth. So the last of the panels, so the top and bottom front valance, I guess is the word. So they've had a bit of cutting and shutting and done on them. So I've actually done a few repairs and patched up the inside as well, so that when you look down behind the grille it doesn't look all dodgy. And then a bit across the back window, it's going to have painted bumpers, so I put them in the CT epoxy just so they didn't rust. So now we've given them a quick scuff up with some 240, and I'll put some of the 616 epoxy on those. And then this one here had a little bit more repairs done to get the gaps right and matching up to that nose cone. So now that'll all go in epoxy, and then all those parts are going to go into spray filler. And then the front inner guards, so we'll start moving on to those bits now. So once again, they were cleaned up and hammered up and put into the CT. They've been sitting around for a while, but I'm going to do those also with the filler, so that I can fill up where there's areas like this where they've welded up holes and things. I've knocked those up the best I can, and now we'll put the spray filler on there, and the underside of those will be in stone guard, so I don't have to worry about that too much. So that's today's little job. Righto, so I've got 3 coats of the A712 polyester spray filler on those where they need it. So things like the rear bumper needs a bit of filler, so we'll do the filler work first. All the other bits and pieces have had that work done. So I put 2 coats of epoxy and then 3 coats of that spray filler. So they should all rub out nice now. I'm going to get them done before I head over to SEMA in the US next week, so that we can get some paint on it when I come back. So while that's in the booth, I've put the body out in the sun, and it's a good opportunity to check your lines. So with the direct sun on it, and it's funny, when the car's in primer and you put it out in the sun, you'll get a better idea of the lines than you will once it's got clear on it, because the reflection tends to hide, any of the imperfections. But this is now a good opportunity to check. It looks a little bit fat through here, wants a bit more of a rub in here when I get through this primer. But my general lines I'm happy with, that line up through that quarter. They're quite nice looking quarters, these. And these transitions through here. And then this here looks a bit sharp to me because I did a fair bit of work around here. So I'm thinking that wants the edge taken off it. And then that body line looks pure. I like the look of that. And then that line there is probably just a little bit fat as well. Just wants a little bit more detail. I mean, you're talking the smallest amount when you're rubbing, and then the same as these ends of the panels. You just get that really nice shadowing that gives you an opportunity to see how your work's come out.